Tonight, in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television, the Social Democratic Front reorganizes primaries in some parts of the northwest region of the country following reports of several irregularities. And also in this newscast, the ADEC president is demanding the immediate release of one of its members who was sent on an investigative mission in Boya southwest region of the country. And also all public buildings in the country would in the days ahead take into account the peculiarities of persons living with disabilities. These are headlines, details and more just in a moment. We open this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television with a sad story. One person is said to have died with several others seriously injured following a road accident that occurred along the Bangu-Bafang Road that is in the west region of the country. The incident, as senior reporter Christopher tells us, has been blamed on drunk driving.
The indicted vehicle finally ended in the gutter while coming back from Bangu in the west region to deposit a bereaved family and their corpse. Onlookers hold that the apparently drunk driver was going at breakneck speed when he knocked down two people. He then disappeared into thin air, leaving behind the victims, amongst whom one who died on the spot and his badly damaged vehicle in the gutter. This road accident, locals hold, is one of the many such incidents that claim lives around the Opankam division on the Douala-Bafoussam highway. All these mostly caused either by lack of speed brake or reckless driving that is common on this road. Yesterday, many died. 2 just died today. How many more tomorrow remains the question.
Meantime, barely 24 hours to the July 17th deadline for the submission of the list of nominated candidates within the ranks of the various political parties vying for posts in the upcoming municipal and legislative elections. No political party has so far been to the elections governing body Elecam for the exercise. Let's have an update on what is happening at the Yaoundé Elecam head office with Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Ako.
At the head office of Elecam Tuesday afternoon, no political party had submitted nomination list of candidates for the Twin Council and parliamentary elections. We were told by Elecam officials that all is set at the elections management body to receive the list of candidates from political parties. At the head office of the governing CPDM party, officials were busy working on petitions submitted by angry supporters of the party, agonized by investitures at the grassroots. At the Cameroon Renaissance movement of Professor Maurice Kamto, the party's investiture committee Tuesday night was expected to disclose the list of candidates for the twin elections after a meeting. Ahead of the meeting, newspaper reports have it that Professor Maurice Kamto is going to head the list of his party for parliamentary election in the Mfundi division. From every indication, political parties, it seems, are waiting for the D-Day to submit the nomination list of their candidates for the September 30 Twin Council and parliamentary elections.
We remain in politics. The Social Democratic Front chair, that is Nijan Frundi, has so far ordered for the reorganization of primaries in the Bui and Fundong division of the northwest region of the country. This follows reports of several irregularities that plagued the holding of primaries in both areas in the northwest region of the country. The elections would be carried out tomorrow before a special team for the elections leaves for Yaoundé in the central region of Cameroon. Nijan Frundi, however, said the party is 90% gone with the compilation of documents. He maintained that transparency must prevail. Back to Yaoundé Central Region, an interministerial agreement to facilitate access to public infrastructure or buildings to persons living with disabilities was today signed in that part of the country. The consensus between the Social Affairs Ministry and other three ministerial departments would in the days ahead apply to all buildings or structures to be constructed across the country. Our Yaoundé-based correspondent Roland Akong tells us more.
With his role chair, Teodonge is going into a public building, but his role chair cannot enter the building.
The fact that there are stairs, many stairs, sometimes at the entrance, sometimes between the different floors, so that it is not easier at all to get access to some services offered by those buildings.
Mobility or access into public buildings is a problem to many persons with disability in Cameroon, as no pathways are provided for them.
The doors are not as large to permit, to allow rolling chairs to enter in many offices.
This is against a 1990 law, which requires that all public buildings should take into consideration the problems of persons with disabilities. Government apparently wants to tackle the issue now, and that is the essence of this agreement signed in Yaoundé Tuesday.
The different ministers has to ask their collaborators to take into consideration the different aspects of this document. We think that from tomorrow, we don't any longer have a building is built without taking into consideration the handicapped specificity.
But the matter doesn't end only at the level of public infrastructures.
When you have a disabled person inside your house, just make that kitchen, the door of kitchen is open, toilets, the door is enough to the wheelchair, for example, and make that when you know that he is living with you, make that many important things in home are at his level.
Roland Akong there reporting from Yaoundé Central Region of Cameroon. Meantime, the Minister of Transport has called on Cameco officials here in the economic capital Douala to prioritize domestic flights and also promote the well-being of its workers. Robert Nkili was speaking today in the economic capital Douala during the installation ceremony of the Assistant General Manager of the said corporation. For Hansen Chanji tells us more in the following report.
Professor Robert Nkili, Minister of Transport, was categorical in his installation speech, calling on Cameco officials to sit up and facilitate the realization of projects to attain its objectives. He also told them to instill confidence among Cameroonians in Cameco, regulate transportation fare, and respect time of departure. The minister emphasized that if a flight has to be cancelled, it must be communicated to travelers on time. To him, cancelling or delaying flight without concrete explanation tarnishes the image of the corporation. While urging Cameco to give priority to domestic flight, the minister frowned on the aspect of indiscipline and chaos emanating from the corporation. Professor Robert Nkili therefore called on the new Assistant General Manager, Frederick Mbuntu Edimo, to contribute in the realization of its vision mission. Before the appointment of 58-year-old Frederick Mbuntu, father of 5, on June 14, he was resident representative of ASECNA, an agency for aero navigation in Africa based in Dakar, Senegal. The minister enjoined him to use his 25 years experience in the field to foster the expansion of the corporation.
And we take you now to Buea Southwest region of the country. The president of ADEC is demanding the immediate release of one of his members who was sent on an investigative mission to Buea. Namfak Alex, detained last Saturday, was in Buea to seek answers to the alleged death of one of the incarcerated University of Buea students. The commissioner of the Buea Central Police has so far denied ordering for the arrest of the ADEC member and indicated that the Procureur General is better placed to secure his release. The ADEC President Batum Thierry is still to meet with the UB administration on the matter. And barely 100 days after Pope Francis took control of the Roman Catholic papacy, his humility and ideologies have been widely applauded by the Christian community around the world. He has declined the use of vehicles and the wearing of jewelries, unlike his predecessors. Some Catholic priests here in the economic capital Douala have qualified him as a model for Christians to follow. Let's listen now to one of the priests who spoke to our reporter Flotam Kobensi in the economic capital Douala.
I want to thank God for the Pope Francis, who is the main Pope now carrying out the mission of the Church. We are happy because he is so particular to have removed his eyes and interest on the grandeur of the world and the materialism. And the Pope, as a Pope, the leader of the Church today, the pastor of the Church of this day, he is doing everything to bring down materialism and project Christ above everything. Because for him to make sure that the material things of this world, the grandeur of this world should not take over him. And that's why instead of using gold, he uses silver and bronze. He doesn't go to get those very expensive things. He goes into simple things to show that a pastor must live according to the Word of God. So he's trying to put the Word of God into practice and to project it to the entire Catholic Church.
Reverend Father Christopher Kum there, speaking to our reporter Flotam Kobensi, uploading the humility and ideologies of the new head of the Roman Catholic papacy. We take you now out of Cameroon. 7 people have been killed in clashes. We are in the Middle East. Last night in Cairo between security forces and supporters of the deposed President Mohamed Morsi. The clashes came as a senior U.S. envoy visited Egypt and said it was giving a second chance for democracy to reign. This is the most violent clashes since last week, when more than 50 Muslim or Morsi supporters were killed in fighting with the troops. Mr. Morsi was ousted, that was July 3rd, in what many have described as a military coup. Bringing us to the end of this segment of the news. Up next, we meet our guests. Thanks once again, viewers, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We are going to be talking about the unrest, on the crisis that is plaguing the campus of the University of Buea. We have a former UV student on our set tonight, and also a former member of the University of Buea Student Union, who is also a jurist. Good evening, Elvis Kwisakian. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me on such a day and to talk about something which, of course, is going to let us to know a few things about the school, talk about and the role of the group I once headed.
A group you once headed, of course. So far, a series of strike actions have been organized by the University of Buea Student Union, causing a lot of destruction on the campus. Many of them now are being detained as a result. What's your immediate reaction on the happenings so far on the campus of the University of Buea?
Of course, sad because when I look at what has happened so far in the past years, I think that the intention of this group was not to cause strikes every day. The union came at the background of somebody to mediate. So it came into place because we had to put in place a group that will be able to mediate between the school, the administration, and us. And if we have strikes every day, students are caught, jailed, locked up, some even die, cars are burnt, I don't think it's a good thing for me.
It's yet to be confirmed that a student actually died.
No, I'm even saying in the past, not even now.
Okay.
Past strikes have led to death. But I think that the destruction of cars and houses is not good at all. And the arrest of some of our younger ones who are now to be tried might have come as a result of an attempt by the school to calm down things. But I sincerely think that dialogue should have a place. Dialogue should be brought in, and there should be a midway so that we don't have strikes in the university where every day. It is true that the union has the right to organize strikes, but there are different kinds of strikes. It could be a sit-down strike and strike without going to school. But from what I understand is that each time there is a cry for a change, it often leads to this. Something has to be done. And I think that by the close of this talk, we'll be able to give our own views on how we think that such strikes which come up
or their demands can better be heard by the University of Buea administration. What is actually the role? You superficially just mentioned that it is supposed to be a mediator between the university and the students. What is actually the role of the University of Buea Student Union?
The union was created sometime in May 2005. And it came as a result of the fact that prior to that, there was no central group. It is true that we had what we call at the time College of Presidents, which came from the faculties. But they did not represent the greatest good of us who were in school at that time. And so the union came in to bridge that gap so that complaints, difficulties from the departments to faculties and the life of a young man who comes to school, a younger one to read, can better be improved if he or she has a group or somebody to speak on their behalf. So the union has as role number one to mediate, number two to communicate ideas and changes between the administration and the students too. But at the same time, it has a responsibility to contribute in the well-being of the school as a whole, which means that it is not a government within the school.
Especially in the domain of academics.
In the domains of academics, we even had the main goal to have the union come in to intervene for students who had issues on courses that may not come for receipt and assist them to organize workshops and so forth to educate them. So I think that it has not been the case so far. The union was not just intended to defend students' rights in relation to rents on and off school or whatever. It goes beyond that.
You say you have earlier indicated that it has not been the vision. The vision has not been prevailing up to now. An indication that something is happening now following the recent unrest. That is not actually what the union is supposed to be doing.
I have not had time, or let me say I have not, because I left the union about 7 years ago. And you want to imagine that a lot has happened. It's true, we've been in touch with some of those who have come after I left. I think that there has been a breakaway from the initial goal of the group. That is not to suggest that the union has not been playing its role. I think there needs to be a continuous sensitization and education that those who are going in as executives of the group should understand that they are being called upon to serve and not to be served. Number two, from what I read in the newspapers and from what I get on the ground, it seems there has been some deviant behavior. It's not easy to have a group like that without some people coming in with their own views and ideas. But it is always important that pioneers or those who act to transit, who come into transit power, or who come in the transitional stage, should be able to educate the younger ones that, look, the union is not all about having to go to the streets. But it goes beyond that. It goes to educate younger people on even how to lead. I have had to gain a lot over the years because of my role because I was trained. And apart from having to talk to the VC about the life in school and all of that, I was able to learn on how to lead too. And the mistakes I made, of course, also gave me the room to amend my ways when I left the school. So I am saying that the problem with the union now is because the younger ones who just came in probably have not been able to properly school. They have not been schooled.
At the detriment of the students who are there for
certainly, and that's why you may want to see a young man who goes to school now in university. He talks to you about the union. He says, "I don't want to hear about the student union." They think that it is just a group of 5 people or 10 more who are just there to cause strike. That is not it.
That's the general ideology, as you are saying.
I think that as an Anglo-Saxon school, the University where you have to understand, the Anglo-Saxon culture behind it demands that we have such a group, wherein executives are elected, brought in to represent. In fact, they are supposed to advocate.
And such groups, they do exist in other universities across the country. We have the University of Douala, University of Yaoundé 1 and 2, Gaoundé, across the country. So what's the problem with the University of Buea with recurrent strike actions?
The peculiarity, even when I was at the helm of this, the peculiarity with us in the University of Buea is that it's Anglo-Saxon. And you know, the Englishman generally has this culture of always wanting to pass on his views. When things are not going well, he thinks that he should be able to give him the right to air them out. In the other state universities, like you talk about,
but they face the same problems of maybe their credit that are being awarded to them, problems affecting their learning. They also abound in other state universities across the country. So what's
is that the structures are not the same? Like I said, in the University of Buea Student Union, they have a system that is almost like the parliamentary form of rule, wherein you elect people into the house. Then from there, they are sent. So you have a council that checks the activities of the president of the group, you know, which often leads to continuous assessment. So in the other schools, in other state universities, it's not often the case. And like I said, I can't really speak much about them because I remember in our days, we had a very strong group. We had a bond. Our objective at the time was to represent the goals of the students. Being the last, we didn't think about ourselves first. That is not to say that those who are there now think about themselves first. But I reasonably think that the school, the VC should also understand. And she's a woman. I've had time to work with her, and I was able to learn a lot of things from her. But I think that it's important for her and her team to come to the drawing board and say, what has been happening so far? Invite all those who had the chance to pass through it. Invite persons from outside who can be of good will. And there should be a dialogue. And when dialogue has to come in, everybody must be able to accept his or her wrongs. And everybody must be able to say that, yes, maybe the past has not been the best. They must also understand that the students have a voice. And very often, when they are not being given the chance to air out the views, you realize it often leads to a clash. And one other thing is this: it is not every day that when there is a strike in the university, gendarmes or other armed men should be brought into school. That has also been another issue. Very often, the intention might not be to break doors, break cars. The intention might just to make their voice heard. But once gendarmes show up, they come in with tear gas and other things.
But you see what happened recently, a lot of destruction on the campus, cars burnt, maybe some offices destroyed, and even the students were highly frightened. So until it came to a point where there were even reports as to how the students' union might be suspended.
Well, if destruction of cars, like I say it, property, I categorically condemn it. I'll be very frank. To destroy school cars and buildings, I do not stand for it. To also bring in armed men in school to cause a strike to stop may not just be the best.
So what would have been done?
What should be done is each time, of course, it's not even easy to know what should be done when there is already a strike. The first thing that the school should try as much as possible to do is that they should continuously have talks. Dialogue should reign. Suspicion should not be the order of the day. Why am I saying so? Very often it is easy to hear some staffs within the administration think that there are other staffs who instigate.
But is that true?
It may be true, but let me tell you what I went through. I had such issues. A lecturer will call me and complain, for example, that they have heard that the vice chancellor is planning to do this or that. What I do is, I say, thank you, sir. But I take reasonable steps, move up to her or him, and say, sir, we've been informed. Is it true that this is what is about to be done? If he says yes, then I'll now seek ways to better understand why. Then I come back to the base and explain that this is what is to be done. What do we think? So what I'm saying is that dialogue should prevail when there is an issue.
And there are also reports of how former students who leave the union keep coming back and spearheading some of these protest actions. Is that true?
Well, like I said, I read it in the newspapers But if that is the case, then it's wrong. I think that when you leave the school, you've left. Except the school thinks that your ideas and your views may come in to contribute, to bring peace. Then they invite you, because when you go in there, any action you pose will be charged. You are no longer under the umbrella of the school. And so you are being there is out of the law. And the law will not allow people, to come in who have not been authorized. So if, for example, I have any views like I'm doing now to contribute to the change, to bring peace in the university, I cannot just get one early morning and go there and want to bring change. I may move up to the PC and say, I think that I may have some help. I may be of help. If he says yes, fair enough. If he says no, I don't have any right to go on. But I want to say that this is also due to the fact that when we see a group that it took some lives and it took us pain to bring it to where it is now, to see what is going through, I understand how some of my peers may feel. It's not easy. We fought for it not to be an arm of bringing peace, war every day, but that it should serve the school too. And so some of them who might have been going are just trying to, in their own way, contribute for a change to come. I sincerely think that, like what we did in 2006, we had multiple deaths in school. Teachers were dying, staffs were dying, some other of our peers were dying. We came to a point we had to pray. And we wrote to the PC that let's try to organize a prayer in school and pray for the school. I think that where we are now, the way I look at things, prayer has to be done. The school has people who have been assigned to pray for the school at all times. This is the time. Else,
to pray for the university.
To pray for the university, fasting programs should be organized in school. Pastors should be invited to school and continue to pray, because nobody wants to assume responsibility. Nobody wants to say that, yes, I am wrong. For the VC, she's been trying her best. My other peers on the other side, they too think they know that what they're doing is right. So where do we move from here? Dialogue should be given a place, and stakeholders should be brought in to form a reconciliatory team wherein we can better, make sure that our school which we left should be a place to be and not a place of war.
A place to be, of course. Thank you so much, Ebiski Sake, for
Welcome.
joining us tonight on Talking Point.
It's been my pleasure.
A jurist and former University of Wales Student Union member of the OPSU, and also a former student of the said institution. We thank you so much for joining us tonight, and to you viewers for having joined us in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinox Television. We have come to an end, wishing you a happy and blessed evening in the company of our programs.